powerful Hurricane Irma pounded Cuba all day Saturday before turning toward the Florida Keys, whipping the island nation's northern coast with 155-mile-per-hour winds, damaging property and knocking out communications and electricity in Havana and elsewhere. The massive storm hit late Friday as a Category 5 hurricane. It weakened to Category 3 by late Saturday morning, the U.S. National Hurricane Center said. The storm is expected to regain strength over the warm waters of the Florida Straits. By Saturday evening, no deaths had been reported in Cuba as a result of the storm. Cuban authorities evacuated as many as 1 million people across the island, including an estimated 10,000 tourists from the beaches of Cuba's north coast, and set up dozens of shelters. The government even moved people into Cold War-era tunnels dug in anticipation of a U.S. invasion of the communist nation, according to local media. Power was knocked out in Havana and other parts of the country, according to local media. Images showed huge waves crashing into the capital city's famous Malecon walkway. The storm uprooted trees, downed power lines and flooded streets in the northern city of Caribbean. 20 to 27-foot waves were pounding the northern coast, according to Cuban website Cuba Debate. Irma's turn toward the U.S. completed a rampage across the Caribbean that killed at least 22 people and damaged some islands so badly that they are considered barely habitable until homes can be rebuilt. Another storm, Hurricane Katia, hit the Mexican state of Veracruz on the Gulf Coast early Saturday. 2 people died in mudslides in the Mexican city of Jalapa after it was battered by high winds and heavy rains from the remnants of Katia. The storm weakened quickly after it hit and is now a tropical depression. In the eastern Caribbean, the Leeward Islands were bracing for another night of heavy rains and wind as Hurricane Jose, packing 145-mile-per-hour winds, passed north of the islands. By Saturday night, Jose was about 85 miles north of the Leeward Islands, dumping rain and tropical storm-force winds on islands like St. Martin. While not as powerful as Irma, officials fear the winds could scatter the piles of debris left from Irma, causing injuries and further damage. During its charge through St. Martin, Irma overturned cars, ripped roofs off houses across the island, and stripped leaves off the trees, turning the island's previously verdant hills a dull brown. "It's like a bomb went off," said Richard Lee Wendell, a trumpet player from New York City who was performing on the island when Irma struck. St. Martin has no electricity or phone service, complicating preparations for Jose. A French army colonel leading the military relief effort on the island said it would take 2 to 3 weeks to restore power in the island. Authorities have struggled to contain looting on St. Martin in the aftermath of the storm. Reports of armed bands roaming the island pushed residents to shelters near island's local police and fire stations. William Marlin, the Prime Minister of St. Martin, which shares the island with the French St. Martin, took to the local radio station on Saturday morning to declare a state of emergency and to call on locals to stay indoors, according to Dutch newswire ANP. Under the state of emergency, security forces can arrest suspected looters more easily. The French Interior Ministry said Saturday that stopping looting on St. Martin remains a priority. Some 500 gendarmes and police are present on the island, with helicopter reinforcement to identify the delinquents' vehicles in order to track looters down. At least 11 people on the island have so far been detained, including during the night of Friday to Saturday, the ministry said. Dutch security forces and aid workers spent Saturday helping residents prepare for Hurricane Jose, and evacuated medical patients to Aruba and Curaçao, said Frank Wassenaar, a spokesman for the Dutch Ministry of Interior. Meanwhile, communications have been nearly impossible with local police and government officials in Turks and Caicos, which also took a hard hit from Irma on Thursday and overnight into Friday. Charles Maturin, a photographer who lives on the island, shared photos with a Wall Street Journal via Facebook showing downed trees and power lines, damaged churches and hotels and widespread flooding of highways and the airport at Providenciales, the island chain's main point of entry. A spokesman for the UK's Met Office, the National Weather Service, said communication had been difficult with Turks and Caicos, which is a British territory. It was unclear Saturday whether the island territory had experienced any loss of life. A total shutdown of the island has been ordered by the authorities, the spokesman said. Details seem to be vague, but it's not looking good. Officials from CCR, France's state-owned reinsurance company, said Saturday that the damage in St. Martin and St. Barthélemy could cost insurance companies €1.2 billion, about $1.4 billion. This estimate of damage covers homes, vehicles and businesses covered by natural disaster insurance. The islands are bracing for another hit. France's Interior Ministry said early Saturday that it expects Hurricane Jose to pass within about 60 miles of the islands, bringing winds as much as 90 miles an hour and swells of up to 20 feet. Valentina Pop, Matthew Dalton, Chris Kirkham and Sam Scheckner contributed to this article. Write to Robbie Whelan at robbie.whelan@wsj.com and Matthew Dalton at matthew.dalton@wsj.com.